I'm assuming you know me and I know you. Okay. So we're ready? Everyone can hear? Very good. Okay. Everything's set. Here we go. Okay. Shalom, everybody. Welcome back to Breslov campus, this seminar where we will be going into interesting conversations by Rebbe Nachman found at the end of Likutei Moran. Likutei Moran, as by now I assume you have some familiarity with, are deep, amazing lessons, and lessons which require a lot of concentration and depth to understand. And amazingly, and weird, if you want to say, it's weird and strange that at the end of Likutei Moran Part 2, Rav Nosson added types of conversations given by Rebbe Nachman. And normally the conversations of Rebbe Nachman are found in two other books. One is called Rebbe Nachman's Wisdom, Sichot Haran in Hebrew, and the other one is called Tzaddik in English, Chaye Moharan in Hebrew. So it's very interesting why Rav Nosson put these conversations at the end of Likutei Moran. These conversations start after lesson 93. Lesson 93 of part 2 of Likutei Moran is like a new section. After lesson 92 starts 93. Rav Nosson says we added these conversations at the end. So there's a question mark here. Why did Rav Nosson add these conversations at the end of the Likutei Moran? So I have my personal opinion. I will present it, God willing, in that Rebbe Nachman's goal of all these amazing and deep lessons is the practical application. Rebbe Nachman didn't want us to stay just intellectually sophisticated with deep, profound thoughts. Rebbe Nachman knew and showed us that the goal is to take all of the understanding of the Torah that you have and to make a devotion with it, to transform it, re-express it in prayer format. And with that said, it's understood why Rav Nosson finished the Likud with these conversations, many of them, in fact, 16 of them, which we're going to hopefully go through in this seminar, deal with prayer meaning, or the official prayer service that we daven every day, Shacharit, Mincha, Arvit, the prayer service, or reciting psalms and other written prayers, and especially your personal prayer, hitbodedut. These conversations are amazing in that they are an amazing boost to recharge your devotion, your commitment, and your belief to the power of Hitbodedut. And it seems that Rav Nosson added these conversations at the end of Likutei Moran to remind us that as much as Rebbe Nachman takes you into very deep levels of understanding, the goal is what you do with it. After you understand these ideas, to do something with it, to daven about it, to pray with it, to express it in practical format of achieving and accomplishing through prayer. So besides prayer, there's also greatness of Eretz Yisrael, Rosh Hashana, going to the mikveh, how to learn Rebbe Nachman's teachings. All these conversations at the end are to remind us, after learning the entire Likutei Moran, don't forget, it's as if Rav Nosson is telling a person, don't forget the practical application, to bring out practical application, which is mainly through davening. These conversations, as hopefully you're going to see, are very powerful. They are so powerful that can reboost, like I mentioned earlier, reboost a person to reconnect to Hashem, to reconnect to davening. Because like we're going to see, Rebbe Nachman says here, I think in lesson 101 here, coming up, that hitbodedut is the devotion, meaning that this is the key. This is the devotion, talking to Hashem, but believing in it. Believing it to such extreme extent that this is what's going to change you in life. This is what's going to bring you closer to Hashem. This is what's going to break down the walls and obstacles that you're going through. This is what's going to get things moving in life. Where everything you've tried has failed, hitbodedut can open the doors. It just depends on how much you believe in it. There's prayer and there's prayer. There's a person who does lip service and is half into the prayers. And there's, like Rebbe Nachman is going to bring down also, a type of prayer where literally you put your soul at the edge. In other words, you're about to give over your soul. You put your soul at risk in order to daven. You so believe in the power of these words and in their importance in your life that you're willing to sacrifice yourself, in a sense, for this devotion of hitbodedut, to put your guts, your essence, your life, your blood into these prayers. So this is what's stressed by these conversations. We're going to start, just to let you know where we're covering, volume 2 of Likutei Moran. In our English BRI edition, this edition that everyone is familiar with, right? Sorry, here. Volume 15, the last volume of the Likutei Moran in English. It's lesson 93. It's found on page 362. We're going to be covering the following lessons: 93, and if hopefully we get to it, from 95 to 104, and then we're going to skip to 111, God willing, and then 120 to 122, and then the final lesson of Likutei Moran, 125. Again, they're lessons, but they're really conversations. The format is unlike the rest of Likutei Moran because it's conversation format. You're going to see for yourself. So here we start with a very interesting lesson, conversation, lesson 93 of part 2. Here, Rav Nosson will shed light on why there is not a worldwide acceptance yet of Rebbe Nachman and his teachings. Many people, for example, who discover Judaism and then reach a higher level, discover Torah, observant Judaism, right? We'll see that not everybody is into Rebbe Nachman and his teachings. And there could be even many who are like in the middle, passive, and you have those who are openly opposed or against Rebbe Nachman and his teachings. So here, Rebbe Nachman states why that is the case. Why is it? And when you understand the why, you can begin to understand why prayer is something so difficult and requires a lot of self-sacrifice and putting yourself at the edge in order to connect to it. Watch what he says here. Shamati bishmo. Rav Nosson is talking here. Rav Nosson says, I heard once in Rebbe Nachman's name that he said regarding the opposition that others were opposed to him. He explains it. Rebbe Nachman himself explained why is that happening? Why did that happen? Because our sages in the Talmud, Masechet Brachot, page 6, side 2, 6b, they made a statement like this. It's in expounding on a verse by King David in the book of Psalms, where it says, Kerum Zulut Livnei Adam, in Psalm number 12. It says, the beginning of the verse reads, Saviv Reshayut Livnei Adam, Kerum, like a krum, which is a funny word. What does it mean, krum? Zulut, which means to take lightly. People. The idea is being taken lightly by people. What is the verse trying to say? So the Gemara explains, what does it mean, krum? This funny word, krum. There's no good translation of this word. Also in the Hebrew, what does it mean, the word krum? So the Gemara has to explain it on a drush level, on an allegorical level. The Gemara explains like this. Elu dvarim The verse is referring to items ha'omdim berumo shel olam, which stand at the pinnacle of the creation of the world, at the highest level. So that's already in the word krum. The verse read krum. Krum is as if it says ke rumo shel olam, like items that stand at the pinnacle of the world. Rum means a high level. And the next word zulut, what does it mean zulut? Ubnei adam mezalzelin bahem. Zulut is similar to the word zol, zilzul, to mock and to take lightly. So kurum zulut, an item which stands at the pinnacle, at the highest peak of creation, and yet zulut, people treat it lightly. It reads like this, really: zulut livnei adam, that people, mankind, zulut, treat it bezilzul, treat it lightly. What item are we referring to? What is this item that stands at the pinnacle of creation and people treat lightly or mock? Zilzul can also mean to mock, to put down. So what the Gemara says, what is this item? Tefillah, prayer, like Rashi explains there, prayer goes up. The purpose of prayer, we say prayer here, and the words go super, super duper high, even higher than Torah study. Torah study, the words reach a certain level spiritually. When you're learning Torah, it goes up to a certain level and also lifts you up. It's healing. The Torah, when learning, becomes internalized and changes a person. But prayer goes much farther. We're now saying words, and we're sending them with a balloon, a super duper strong balloon or missile, to go up to the highest of levels, to reach the highest of levels. So prayer, Rashi says, is something that's ram. It goes up, and it goes up above everything else. And that's how Rashi explains, because the goal of the prayers are to reach God Himself. When we're davening, asking Hashem, please Hashem help me, please Hashem, or thank you Hashem, or all the blessings, Baruch Atah Hashem, you're talking to God directly. God being the maximum there is. There can't be higher than God, and our prayers are directed to Him. So therefore, by deduction, prayer is the item that stands at the pinnacle, at the spitz, at the highest of levels. Okay? So that's the Gemara expounds and says that this is prayer. It's an item which stands at the pinnacle of creation, and yet people take it lightly. When we say people take it lightly, it means many things. Number one, people don't concentrate on their davening. Number two, people don't believe enough in the power of prayer. Number three, people begin to mock their own prayers. Of what value are my prayers? Every aspect and every facet, the prayers are put down. They're put down. Okay? So that's what the Gemara is saying. Tefillah. So now Rebbe Nachman said, Al Ken, therefore, or Rav Noson's talking really, Mechamat shekol isko tefillah, since all of Rebbe Nachman's involvement was to get people davening. Rebbe Nachman once said about himself, Gor mein Zach, in Yiddish he said, Gor mein Zach is tefillah. My whole thing is prayer. What does it mean his whole thing is prayer? Rebbe Nachman spoke about many things. Rebbe Nachman also spoke about Torah study, intense Torah study, other types of devotions, going to the mikveh, giving tzedakah, all types of mitzvot and devotions Rebbe Nachman spoke about, right? But the main thing that he really went out of his way to educate people, to strengthen people, is prayer. Because ultimately, your advancement in life ultimately depends on your own davening, your prayers, how much you invested in prayers. Of course, heaven helps. Of course, the merit of the tzaddikim also helps. But you have, through your free will, the right to push, to enforce, and to believe in the power of prayer, so that eventually from heaven they will assist you in your prayers becoming more maximized, more complete, and more producing fruits, producing products and results from your prayers. So Rebbe Nachman, knowing that prayer is the key for everything. Prayer is the key for everything. This is not happening, so daven about it. It's not working out, so daven about it. You're far from your goals, so daven about it. It's amazing. Prayer is the repository For all the obstacles, for everything in life, you can throw it into prayer. And this Rebbe Nachman knew, and he attested himself that he mainly reached his high level through specifically is the devotion of prayer. Take a look in the beginning of Rebbe Nachman's wisdom, the section called his praises. See what outstanding, awesome, unbelievable levels Rebbe Nachman reached. And he himself said it was mainly through his own personal prayers and supplications in his own language, in his own format, in his own expression, saying to us, teaching us that this is the key for success. Take it from me. This is how you can advance in life. Daven about it. But don't just give lip service. Put your heart into the davening. Believe that only prayer will get you to where you have to get to in life. Nothing else. This is the key for everything else. When you know that and you believe it, so you will put more of your heart and your energy and your strength into the words of the prayers. Amazing. So he said, Rav Nosson says, and therefore, because Rabbi Nachman's whole thing was prayer, and explains, because regarding prayers, Rabbi Nachman spoke a lot about it with his followers, his people. And he warned them very much. Leharbot b'tfilah hitbodedut v'sicha beino levin kono. To be very abundant in prayer, in hitbodedut, which means, private meditation. And number 3, sicha beino levin kono, to have private conversation between you and your Creator. It's as if there's 3 departments here, 3 compartments: prayer, seclusion, and then conversation between you and your Creator. Rabbi Nachman warned us to invest in all 3 categories: in prayer, regular prayer, in your own personal meditation at the time, and then those moments when you're able to express and open up your heart. As is brought down already in Rabbi Nachman's teachings, his holy teachings. More than what has been printed in books, in book format of the Breslov teachings, Rebbe Nachman spoke very much about the power of prayer, and he strengthened us with endless encouragement to be abundant and frequent and very involved in prayer and hitbodedut. This reiteration, this stress is to remind us that this is the key. This is the key of getting anywhere. It's how much you daven about it. That's what gets things moving. And you might say, I davened and I got nowhere. I davened to save this person, and then they died, chas v'shalom. So a person has all types of quote-unquote like justifications to prove that prayer did not work out for him enough, or you didn't daven at all, or you didn't daven enough. No one can say, look what my prayers got me, they didn't get me anywhere. That's not true. Like Rebbe Nachman says elsewhere, and Rav Nosson writes, there are times what you're davening for is not necessarily the real truth. So what do they do in heaven? They take your prayers, sincerity, and energy that you're davening for X, and they direct it to give you Y. So even though you're not paying attention, from heaven, they open up the gates for you for another item that you didn't even daven about, and you're not even thinking about, and you don't even value, but in heaven they know you need this point, and what you're asking for, or it's not the time yet, or you're not ready, or it doesn't have to be necessarily the way that you want it to be. So they take your prayers, which are so heartwarm and filled with this point, and they take it for another item even. So a person can never say based on this, look where my prayers got me. Your prayers always get something happening. Whether noticeable or not, your davening is the key. It has to be so stressed that prayer and hitbodedut is what gets things moving. And this is what he's stressing here, Rav Nosson, that Rebbe Nachman strengthened us so much, because it's so easy in this world for a person to become just very heavy and drained and worn out and torn apart and feeling futile seeing that he's davening and davening, and he feels he's getting nowhere. Rebbe Nachman teaches, don't pay attention to this. You are getting things moving. You just have to keep on davening. So they're now going back to the opening statement. What does this have to do with the opposition against Rebbe Nachman? So he says like this, Al Ken, therefore, based on all this, based on how Rebbe Nachman was so involved in davening, and since the Gemara already taught us that prayer, davening, hitbodedut, personal conversation, opening up your heart to God, is something which stands at the pinnacle of creation, and yet people treat lightly. So watch this deduction that Rebbe Nachman brings out. That's why people also mock and take lightly Rebbe Nachman and his teachings. And they even reach the point of insulting him, and even oppose him and his teachings. Why is that happening? Why something so beautiful, so pure, so true, so holy? Why is there room in the world for people to be opposed to this? Why don't people see what I'm seeing? This light and treasure and Rebbe Nachman's teachings. Why aren't other people getting just ticked on, clicked on these teachings? What's going on here? Not only are they not connecting, but they've been put down. It hurts me to see this. What's going on? He says this is why people are so opposed to Rebbe Nachman. He called Isko Tefillah because, like he said, his whole thing is davening. His whole work was to get people to wake up and daven. Start putting your energy that you have hidden within you into the words of prayer. Right? Shem Dvarim Hamdim Berumo Shalom. Because, like we said, prayer, words of prayer are items that stand at the pinnacle of the creation. And like we said, people treat it lightly. So automatically, since Rebbe Nachman was so involved in davening, people also treat him lightly and don't take to heart and to ear what he's saying. And understand this. This applies at all levels. Even someone who claims to be a part of the Breslov movement, he will have times, many times in life, where his davening will be very out of it, and he won't even believe anymore in what he got involved in, God forbid. That's how serious the test can be. So here, Rebbe Nachman is warning us, be strong in prayer. Realize that anybody who takes the path of prayer in life will face inevitably major opposition. But this is the key for your success. This is the key for your salvation from all your enemies, whether physical, spiritually, mentally, whatever level. Prayer is the key to get through it. And you're going to have to endure a lot of quote-unquote opposition from people who seem to be more religious than you or better than you. How could you do that? Who do you think you are, etc.? This is the key. Next lesson, lesson 95. He says like this. Oh, another conversation regarding the power of prayer. לעניין hitbodedut ושיחה בינו לבין קונו ואמירת תהילים ותחינות ובקשות. Regarding, number one, hitbodedut, personal prayer. Number two, שיחה בינו לבין קונו, open conversation between you and your creator, feeling very open and connected and talking to God, very emotional about it. Number three, amirat tehilim, saying psalms, which we're going to go into, God willing, the power of psalms. Number four, all types of requests and supplications. So he says, Tov me'od keshezochin le'omram belev shalem emet. It is very good if a person can say the words of prayer with full sincerity of heart, truth. Ad sheyizke livkot lifnei Hashem, so much of the words that you begin to cry, begin to shed tears. Keben habochel lifnei aviv, like a son crying before his father. So Rebbe Nachman says this is a desirable goal, to reach a level where you're so into the davening that you're beginning to cry because you're so into the words of prayer. But look, there's a catch-22 here. Be careful. Warning. What's the warning? Aval amar. Yet, Rebbe Nachman warned. That when a person says all types of supplications and entreaties to God, and he thinks in his heart, and he's hoping and waiting to be able to actually cry. So in other words, you have like an davening. You're davening in order to cry. So he says, Rebbe Nachman, it's a problem. Zot hamachshava eina tova. This thought, this, even though it's something which is, it has a virtue, right? It's something positive to cry in davening, and you're thinking to get to that point, and you're focusing on it. He says, Rebbe Nachman, that this thought is not good. Unbelievable. Right? And this thought of wanting to cry can confuse your mind while davening. Because if you're thinking about, when am I going to cry? When am I going to finally cry? I can't wait to start crying. So because of this, you're occupying your brain, your thoughts about the crying part, and you're saying the requests and supplications for the sake of crying, so you can't fully concentrate on the words because you're also focusing on the point of getting to cry. Because a person, at the time that he says all types of supplications and petitions, requests, the goal is to become totally one with the words of prayer. Okay? To become one and in tuned at the words of the prayer. Unbelievable. Okay? You have to push away all types of foreign thoughts while davening. Rather, focus your mind on the words that you are saying and reciting and expressing. Hashem, blessed be He. Just like how one person, a friend, would talk to another friend. And then automatically we're able to connect on such a personal level to God, to the words of the prayer. Automatically, look what he's saying here. Once you've become in tuned to the words of prayer, easily, with ease, your heart can become aroused. To the point where you'll come to great and sincere crying. Amazing. But you can't think about it. You can't focus on the crying part. You focus on the meaning of the words. You become emotionally big crying. But when you are thinking about and hoping to actually cry, so you lose out everything. Davening, you don't connect to the meaning of the words. You lose out everything and nothing you gained eventually. Because the recitation, the speech of the words of prayer have become confused and mixed up through this, as mentioned above. Because this point that he has an ulterior motive, I can't wait to actually cry, I can't wait to open my heart, is also connected to a type of idolatry. Look at that. Crying, thinking about crying. What could be wrong with that? I want to cry. He says that this is a foreign thought. That ruins the concentration. That a person can't listen carefully enough. In other words, the required amount of listening carefully, he loses it. Right? Through the crying, with the thinking about crying. So he goes on. Because when it comes to all types of prayers, personal prayers, or institutionalized prayers, all levels of prayer, to speak the words with such sincerity and honesty and truth before Hashem, blessed be He, without any ulterior motives, as mentioned above. And if in the end you merit to really cry, great. Veim love, and if not, not. Don't let it bother you. Don't lose out your recitation in prayers because of this, because you can't cry, because you're thinking about crying. It's amazing what Nachman is saying. He's saying the key for davening. He says this in many places in Likutei Moharan, is to connect to the truth of the words. No ulterior motives. Don't start thinking about this and that, because it won't get you there. What will open the gate, open the doors of your emotions to connect to the words, is focusing on the simple, straightforward meaning of the words. That should be strong enough, that should be potent enough to open the doors, to open your heart, to open the tears to come. Short lessons here. Lesson 96. We've done 2 already, and this is the 3rd one. Amazing. They get more and more exciting. Od amar le'inyan hitbodedut. Furthermore, Rebbe Nachman said regarding hitbodedut, regarding personal prayer. Watch this. This might, like it did to me when I first saw this, this might flip you out. Look what he says. Shehaya darko zal. Rebbe Nachman regarding hitbodedut, that it was his way, blessed be he, lezarez me'od bazeh, to very much, speed people up to do it as soon as possible. Don't delay in practicing hitbodedut. Really, really in tuned to doing it as soon as possible. Very much. Bazel liot magil me'od hitbodedut. Right? But specifically the ziruz, getting people to be hasty to do it, was that they should become so accustomed to hitbodedut, so attuned to hitbodedut, that you reach a point that you cannot live without it. How many of us can live days, years, without even once sincerely talking to God? How many people are like that in the world? It's unbelievable. You have people, even religious observant Jews, who never even once thought about talking to Hashem in your own words. If people have thought about it, they might say, what, as if Hashem actually listens to me, little me, my prayers? And Rebbe Nachman says, yes, every person. It's not just Rebbe Nachman, it's also the Gemara, and the Zohar, and the Midrash, and the Torah, that Hashem listens to all the prayers. He listens to everybody's prayers. Okay, it's unbelievable. And so Rebbe Nachman stressed very much that people should be very accustomed, meaning every day, not just once in a blue moon, but to get to a point that you can't live without it. Rav Nosson made many statements regarding hitbodedut. 2 that come sticking out so much, that Rav Nosson said that he became so frequent in doing hitbodedut in his life that he cannot do anything in his life, anything, without first talking to Hashem about it. It's unbelievable. Once Rav Nosson's disciple, Rav Nachman Tulchiner, he was hammering a nail into the wall for whatever reason. He was doing repairs or something, and by accident he missed the nail and he hit his finger, his thumb, with the hammer instead, and he was in pain. Imagine. So Rav Nosson said to Rav Nachman Tulchiner, why didn't you daven before hitting the hammer? Hashem, please let me hit the nail with the hammer. To show you that you would think, what do you have to daven about this? And Rav Nachman, his generation, was someone out of this world, literally. His name was Rav Shmuel Horvitz. He was very, very connected to the divine. People told me, he passed away in 1972, I think in 1972, 1973, 1974, I forget which year. I think it's 1972. And they said about moving like a bird chirping nonstop. He was like talking to himself. Back then there were no cell phones. So there's no gimmicks here of talking to somebody with a Bluetooth and you're moving your lips. So people know why you're moving your lips, because you're talking to somebody. Back then, no Bluetooth, no cell phones, nothing, right? Just regular telephones. So he was moving his lips while walking on the streets, and people were asking, "What's he saying?" He's like, he looks like a bird chirping, a bird nonstop moving his lips, like he was moving his lips like a bird, and he was just nonstop connected to talking to God. Rebbe Nachman wants us to reach a level. It's an education. It's a chinuch here, that every spare second you have, use it to hitbodedut. In a doctor's appointment, waiting in the waiting room, you don't just sit down like everybody else, staring at each other, staring at the walls, looking at the newspaper and everything. This time is accounted for too in heaven. You're going to give an accounting for those minutes that you sit down there doing nothing. You could have sometimes a valid excuse. You're in pain, you're drained, you're tired, but at least make an effort. At least try to say a word to Hashem. Rav Avram ben Rebbe Nachman was a Breslever also of the previous generations, and he said that how could a Jew say that he's going to sleep? When a Jew goes on his bed to go to sleep, how could a Jew go to sleep? We have so much to do in this world. We have so much obligations to meet, which is the reason for which Hashem sent us back into this world. You have a lot to do. It's not a joke. You have maybe 50, 60, 70, 80 years, if you're lucky, 90, if you're very lucky, 100 years. You have a lot to do. Not just to waste time watching baseball games and eating ice cream, whatever. You're sent here for a mission. Every second is going to be accounted to. You might say, yeah, but what can I do while walking to work, while driving, or taking the bus, or taking the subway, or going out for a little walk? How can I connect that to God? So here's the advice, is that every second you have, talk to Hashem. You move those lips. So Rebbe Nachman would say that how could a Jew say he's going to sleep? And yet the body demands, the body needs to re-energize and recuperate and redevelop, and we have to sleep. You can't just not sleep. So Rebbe Nachman said, so at least when you go to sleep, say words of hitbodedut. Just on a halachic point, I just want to say something. That if you look in your standard siddur, before going to sleep at night, there's what's called kriyat shema shalamita. What's calling the recitation of Shema before going to bed. In that recitation, there's also a bracha called birkat hamapil. Some people say the actual Baruch Atah Hashem hamapil. Some people, especially by the Sfardim, they skip Atah Hashem, right? Elokeinu melech haolam hamapil. They just say Baruch hamapil because they're worried that they might talk afterwards. According to both opinions, even those who have in their siddur to say Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam hamapil, and therefore it's like saying a blessing before going to sleep. Just like, before eating a fruit or doing any mitzvah, you say a blessing and then you do the actual devotion. So sleeping also is a type of devotion, believe it or not, because you are bringing back your soul up to God to re-energize it. So in the morning it's renewed. So this itself is a mitzvah. And birkat hamapil, the blessing before going to sleep, is like a blessing before going to sleep. It's before the mitzvah. So you're not allowed to talk in between. As you know, when you eat a fruit, for example, you say the blessing over the fruit. You're not allowed to say, oh, please pass me the mustard. No, you have to quickly eat the item and then talk. You have to swallow and then talk, right? You're not allowed to interrupt. So how about sleeping now? Are you allowed to say anything after sleeping? That's the whole halachic argument, which is why many rabbis say, don't say Atah Hashem. Just say Baruch Hamapil. Think in your head, Atah Hashem, whatever. That way, if you consider it a problem. But other rabbis say, no, you have to say Baruch Atah Hashem and make sure you go to sleep and not to talk afterwards. According to both opinions, though, you're allowed to continue saying words of prayer. If you take a look at your siddur, whether it's Ashkenaz, Sfard, or the Sephardic version, there's even after saying the Birkat HaMapil, you see there are extra supplications, Ana B'Koach, and verses, etc. you see in your siddur there. So it's not an interruption. So they explain prayer, though, is not an interruption. Meaning that even when you're on your bed, going to sleep, you can say words of hitbodedut. And Rebbe Nachman said, do that so that at least when you fall asleep, it'll be falling asleep through words of prayer, and it'll be out of duress that you were involved in praying and you fell asleep in the middle. It's not your fault. Your body needs to rest. But the idea is to get so attuned to davening. Today, like we said earlier, we have the Bluetooth, you have all types of intercoms here. So when people see someone moving their lips and talking to themselves on the street, people immediately assume, that person's talking to somebody. He has a Bluetooth. He has something connected to his ear. There's a little hidden microphone that we don't see. They can assume easily you're talking to somebody else, and it doesn't look or feel as awkward as it did maybe 20, 30, 40 years ago. So there's no excuse not to talk to Hashem. The majority of your day, believe it or not, should be in prayer. That's what Ethics of Our Fathers teaches. Kol shechochmato meruba mima'asav lemahu domeh. If you recall the Mishnah in Ethics of Our Fathers, someone whose wisdom is greater than his deeds, to what he's compared to? He's compared to a tree that is a very thin stem and many branches and leaves, comes along, regular wind, and because of the weight of the tree, of all the branches connected to the very thin stem, the tree falls down. The leaves emanating from the tree is like all Torah study, etc. But the stem is the actions, the ma'asim, which the rest of the commentaries explain. The actions are your prayers. Someone whose Torah study surpasses his level of prayer, he can eventually fall. A wind will come, not even a storm wind. The person can learn because everything's fine and dandy. But God forbid he gets hit with a minor test, that's it, he can collapse. He can't handle the test. As opposed to the Mishnah continues, a tree that has a very thick and strong and heavy stem, and even though it has few branches, so this is compared to that type of tree that the strongest winds will push against and blow against this tree, nothing can knock it down. Even though it has a few branches, but the stem is strong. It's solid. So the winds, which are the tests and tribulations, won't move him. And Pirkei Avot is hinting that your actions have to be more than your deeds, which is interpreted as prayers, should be more than your davening, than your Torah study. Take a look of how much time we spend a day davening. Shacharit by the average person is between an hour and an hour and a half. Mincha, let's say, is another 20 minutes, 25 minutes. Arvit also is another 25 minutes, half an hour. So you have about 3 hours of davening. Now, if such a person, he has 3 hours of davening, and then add to that the blessings in the morning, the Birkot HaShachar, if he says Birkat HaMazon, all types of blessings after relieving oneself from the bathroom or eating all during the day. Your person eats a lot, breakfast, lunch, supper, you're eating and you're saying blessings. Those are also types of prayers, right? So now add that all up, it comes to maybe 3.5 hours, let's say, maximum 3 hours. But the person is willing to spend, if he's lucky, if a person does Gemara, Daf Yomi, he does Daf Yomi, so it could be an hour and a half, and then he has other times to learn Mishnayos and Musar. He might even learn Rebbe Nachman's teachings, he learns Halacha. So people are much more into spending more time in learning Torah than davening. If a person had a free minute, he would say, well, I'd rather learn. It's true, you rather learn. But now if your learning accumulates to be more than your davening, so you're in for it. You're in for a big test. Rebbe Nachman teaches, invest in the davening part. That will ensure that you have a strong bark, a strong stem, so that afterwards you will be able to produce many leaves and branches. And you will be able to stand tests that won't bring you down, and you will still be around to be able to learn Torah and to develop, but invest in the davening. Coming up, we're going to see that Rebbe Nachman's going to quote Rabbi Yochanan from the Gemara. Rabbi Yochanan in the Gemara, I think it's Brachot, page 6. The Gemara says, Rabbi Yochanan says, if only a person can pray all day, The fact that the Gemara makes such a statement, if only a person could pray all day, showing you that prayer is not a joke. Prayer is the key. Learning Torah is very intellectually stimulating. That's why people like, especially men, of course, they like the challenge, they like Torah classes. It's something which is very attractive. Davening, it's not so easy. It's more emotionally based. Maybe women can more connect to davening, whatever. But davening is hard because it's not attractive. And yet we're taught that Leah, she cried. Leah, the two wives of Yaakov. Yaakov had Leah and Rachel. Rav Nosson compares Leah to prayer, because it says in the Torah, and the eyes of Leah were soft and rakot. And Rashi explains that she was always crying because people were making fun of her. You're going to end up marrying Esav, the wicked Esav. And she was crying and crying and praying, please Hashem, don't bring me to the hands of Esav. Hashem listened to her prayers, and even though in a very indirect and unfair and unexpected way, but she ended up with a tzaddik, with Yaakov Avinu. Rachel, the Gemara compares Rachel to the Torah, because the name Rachel is similar to a sheep. Rachel, Rachelim in Hebrew, like you have kvasim and son. A Rachel is a type of a name for a female sheep. And the Torah is compared to a sheep. Why? Because just like in the sheep, every part of the animal is useful. The hair produces wool, right? From the veins that you can make the threads for the Sefer Torah. From the skin you can make parchment. From the horns you can make shofar. And the Gemara goes on to list all types of things made up of every part of the body of the sheep, of the Rachel. So too, every part of the Torah is useful, number one. And number two, every person in the world connects to a part of the Torah. Everyone says, I like learning the laws of the Beit HaMikdash, of the third temple. Another person says, I like learning the laws of Shatnez. I like learning the stories in the Bible. I like learning Kabbalah. Each person has something else that they like so much. So that's the idea of the Rachel, right? So Rav Nosson says that Yaakov, because of the Torah, is attractive. Everybody loves Torah. Everybody likes intellectually simulating classes and ideology, because that's how man is. It's understood, right? It's understood that Torah, information, knowledge, wisdom, this is something very important. We're not, God forbid, at all belittling it. But davening, prayer stands at the pinnacle. Prayer is even higher than Torah study because it goes up to the heavenly throne. It goes up higher than everything else. And like we said, krum zulut, krum, davar shomed berumo shel olam, an item that stands at the pinnacle of creation, that's davening. And people treat it lightly. They don't value the davening enough. So on one hand, we have Torah study, but like Rebbe Nachman teaches a lot, the goal of the Torah is to afterwards daven about it, to turn this concept that comes up many times in Rebbe Nachman's teachings, to turn Torah lessons into prayer. What do you do about what you're learning? What do you do to ensure that you will fulfill what you're learning? What is the bridge between what you're learning and what you're doing? Prayer. Prayer is what will join you to connect, to make some of a practical application between what I'm learning and what I'm doing. Who says that it's automatic? After learning this, for sure I'm going to fulfill it. Who says, what guarantee do you have in life that you will be able to withstand all types of tests and temptations against what you're learning? What guarantee do you have? So you need davening, which is the key bridge between potential to actual. The bridging of what you're learning is through prayer. So because that prayer stands on a higher level. So Hashem switched it that Yaakov married Leah first, which is the idea of Leah, comes always first. You will eventually marry Rachel, yes, but don't forget the prayer. The goal of Rachel is the prayer. That's why Hashem made it in a very treating, outwitting, outsmarting way that Lavan fooled, divinely sent in the end. Hashem wanted this to happen. That Leah, which is prayer, came to Yaakov Avinu, and then Rachel. And if you look in the Torah, who brought out the majority of the tribes? From who will come King David, Mashiach? From Leah. From Judah. Judah is the son of Leah. Okay? Yosef came from Rachel, right? Yosef, the king of Egypt. But ultimately, The Mashiach we're waiting for is who? Mashiach ben David. Mashiach, the son of David. David coming from Judah, Judah coming from Leah, who symbolizes prayer, showing us the main weapon of every Jew. Rebbe Nachman says in lesson number 2 in the Likutei Moharan, you can see there, the main weapon of every Jew is prayer. The main weapon of Mashiach B'ezrat Hashem will be prayer. The main weapon for you to overcome the tests in life is not just to run to a Gemara and immerse yourself in learning and hoping that the problem will disappear. The goal of difficulties in life and all types of tests is to bring you closer to Hashem. But the only way to do that is if you do the right thing when hit with a situation. That is to invest in davening, invest in prayer. A Jew can't say, I just learn, and I don't daven. You can't do that. Every Jew in the world, even the biggest Torah scholar, has to close his books to daven, shacharit, mincha, arvit. And like Rebbe Nachman's we're gonna see coming up, this includes hitbodedut, because hitbodedut is not a Breslov innovation. Hitbodedut, like the Rambam explains, was the prayer format of every single Jew from the time of Moses and even before, but officially from the time of Moses when he gave the Torah at Har Sinai until the Anshe Knesset HaGdolah, the men of the Great Assembly in the time of the Mishnah, even a bit before of the time of the Tanaim of the Mishnah. Every Jew in the world did hitbodedut. And the rabbis, the scholars, the tzaddikim, the sages of the Anshe Knesset HaGdolah, the men of the Holy Assembly, when they saw that people were beginning to slack in their own personal davening, they instituted a format that everybody from greatest to the smallest has to do minimum. And what is that? That's the Shemona Esrei, the Amidah prayer that every Jew davens. But like Rebbe Nachman points, so it doesn't mean now that you drop the initial format of davening, which is hitbodedut, just because now the men of the Holy Assembly now enforce that every Jew has to daven shacharit, mincha, arvit. We have the systematic davening. Doesn't mean now as an excuse that you can't daven in your own word anymore. It's minimal, but it doesn't mean okay, that's everything. That's all, folks. That's all my davening. No, this is instead. This is something minimal. But if you can, and Rebbe Nachman says you should connect to Hashem at the highest of levels, you must talk to Hashem a lot. And again, we're stressing this point that Rebbe Nachman said about himself, that he reached his high level, that he reached, and you can begin to see the greatness of Rebbe Nachman from his Likutei Moharan, from his teachings that he revealed. He said all of this was specifically through hitbodedut. He said towards the end of his life that if I would have known what in my beginning, at Rebbe Nachman's beginning, he did a lot of what's called sigufim, self-mortification. He would dip himself in the ice-freezing mikveh and stay inside immersed, freezing cold water, in a mikveh, a ritual bath, for over an hour. He would roll in the snow. He would fast from Saturday to Saturday. He literally killed himself, if you want to say. He ruined his body to such high levels. Okay? He said afterwards, if I would have known back then the power of hitbodedut, I would have never submitted myself to all those formats and forms of self-mortification. This comes to show us what your prayers can do. This seminar, I think, is going to be very powerful. We haven't even begun to touch. We've only touched into 2 or 3 of the 16 conversations coming up. I hope we'll have time to get through them, but they're very powerful, God willing. I just want to finish. We have time to finish. I can't even finish this one. We only covered 2.5 of these conversations. Time is up already. If you have any comments or questions, we'll continue, God willing, next week. But please feel free to contact me. If you have any questions now, even you can punch them in. But if not, please contact me. This is my email address. I'm showing it on the screen now. Here. Yes, I see there's a comment that. Moshe, thank you for your input. So true, brings tears to my eyes. Yes, precious minutes. I agree. Esther M. Regarding hitbodedut, since I came from a background that spoke to God personally outside of Judaism, I was told it was better to only use siddur. Please take a look. Gives you the clear history of prayer. And I understand where you're coming from, but it's a Jewish practice. And maybe I can understand what they're saying, that in order to adjust to Judaism, to at first focus on the siddur and the siddur alone, but the goal is to begin to connect eventually with your, not to begin, sorry, to eventually connect with words from your own heart. I can understand when people told you that it's in order to shift, to go from one extreme to the other extreme, so use only the siddur. But eventually, as a Jew, as an observant, Torah observant Jew, to talk to Hashem from your heart is the greatest devotion. We're going to see. Rebbe Nachman's going to mention this. Thank you, Reb Simcha, Ms. Simcha Yael. Thank you, Reb Moshe. Thank you, Susan. I don't know what the 6 is, but I hope it's something nice. Thank you, Michal. Thank you, Reb Beryl. Thank you, Teresa. And thank you, Tom. Thank you, Esther, ma'am. All right. Shalom, everybody. Thank you, Isabella. Thank you, Miss Stoneman. All special people. You're all special people. Thank you very much. Have a beautiful week. Chodesh Tov, the month of Elul. Month of Elul. Do you know what Elul is? Ani ledodi vedodi li. I am to my beloved, and my beloved is to me. The main way to be to your beloved Hashem is through prayer. This month, more than any other month, is propitious to being able to open up your heart and talk to Hashem. Take advantage, please, everybody. Take advantage of the power of this month. All the best. Thank you for joining, and see you, God willing, at the next class. Shalom and be well.